Word on the street is Snoop has just been hit with a massive sentence in connection to Nippy's death. And if you've been following the rumors, this might not come as a surprise, especially with his rumored ties to Big U. The man some say actually plotted it.
From Big U, telling you Nipsey just got killed.
Yeah.
You panic, called Nip. Nip answered the phone.
Yeah.
And even slipped up about it. So, how does Snoop connect to all of this? Well, what cops found changes everything. Let me break it down. The shadow behind the trigger. Before we get into the parking lot, before we get into the bullets, before we get into the trial and the sentencing, we got to address the elephant in the room. Because Snoop Dogg being tied to Nippy's death didn't just appear out of nowhere. The moment Nipsey Hussle was gunned down outside the Marathon clothing store on March 31st, 2019, the internet didn't just mourn, it started pointing fingers. And the biggest finger, the one trending in conspiracy threads, deep dive comment sections, and late night TikToks stitched together from old interviews and surveillance clips, points straight at Snoop Dogg. Not as the grieving big homie, not as the man who stood in front of 21,000 people at Nippy's memorial fighting back tears, but as someone who supposedly knew what was coming and either let it happen or helped set it in motion from the shadows. Now here's the thing. The conspiracy doesn't start with Snoop directly. It starts with a Big U. If you're plugged into the politics of the Rollin' 60s Crips, you know Big U is one of the most polarizing figures in that ecosystem. An OG with deep ties, deep influence, and a reputation that splits people clean down the middle. Some see him as a community leader who invested in the hood. Others see him as something far more sinister. The theory that consumed the internet goes like this. Big U allegedly had foreknowledge of Nippy's death. Snoop was tight with Big U, and therefore Snoop either had advanced knowledge himself or deliberately chose Big U's side over Nip's. That's the accusation that's been circulating for years. That's the framework that turned Snoop from a mourner into a suspect in the court of public opinion. And the fuel that set the whole thing on fire. A claim from a man named Loose Cannon, a street figure in LA who went on record alleging that Big U was making phone calls about Nippy shooting before the news had even gone public 30 minutes before. According to the allegation, 30 minutes. If that's true, that means somebody in that inner circle had information about the hit while Nippy was still breathing. And when Loose Cannon laid out the details of that phone call, the specifics were enough to make the whole internet stop scrolling. You get a call from Big U telling you Nippy just got killed. Yeah, you panic called Nip. Nip answered the phone. Yep, sit with that. The claim is that Big U was calling people to say Nip got killed. And when they panicked and dialed Nippy themselves, Nip picked up the phone. He was still alive. Which means if you follow the conspiracy logic, either Big U jumped the gun on information he had no business having, or he knew what was about to go down before it did. And the internet took that thread and ran it all the way to Snoop's front door, because Snoop and Big U go way back. Deep ties, long history, documented relationship. The conspiracy crowd's math was simple. If Snoop was this tight with Big U, and Big U allegedly had advanced knowledge, then Snoop either looked the other way or was part of the machinery. That's the accusation that's been ricocheting across every platform for half a decade. But how did Nippy really die? Because the truth is even more disturbing than the conspiracies people keep spreading. Eric Ronald Holder Jr., 29, also Rollin' 60s affiliated, pulled up to the strip mall with a woman he'd been seeing for about a month. Aspiring rapper, went by Fly Mac. Career flatlined while Nippy's was touching the sky. CPPD chili cheese fries from Master Burger, spotted Nip in the lot. What followed her grand jury transcripts and trial testimony was a 4-minute conversation that was calm as church on Monday. Handshakes, smiles, zero hostility. But during that talk, Nip told Holder, no aggression, no disrespect. That word on the street was, there's paperwork on him. In that world, paperwork means evidence of cooperating with police. The most dangerous label you can wear. Nippy wasn't accusing. He was warning, looking out for a homie from the same set. Holder asked if Nip himself had ever snitched. No raised voices. Conversation ended. Holder walked off, and Cowboy Herman Cowboy Douglas Nippy's day one, who was standing right there for every syllable later, described it plain. You know, he says Nippy was looking out for him, basically saying, "Hey, they got paperwork on you." Looking out for him. That's all it was. And Holder walked back to the whip, sat with his date, ate his fries. 9 to 10 minutes of silence. Then he loaded 2 straps, a semi-automatic and a silver revolver, in the woman's car. She said no drive-a-bee in her vehicle. He didn't care. Changed his shirt, circled the block, came back on foot. At least 10 shots. Close range. Nip fell like dead weight. Holder stood over him. Said, "You're through." Kicked him in the head and bounced. Nip's last words, "You got me." 2 bystanders caught rounds, including Carrie Laffin, a recently paroled man who'd gotten a care package from Nip weeks prior. Holder threatened his date, fled to a Motel 6, and turned himself in 2 days later at a mental health clinic. The question that consumed all of LA was one word. Why? Was it the snitch talk? Was it jealousy that had been simmering long before that Sunday? Was it something buried in the shared gang roots that neither man could escape? The prosecution would later say the conversation had little or nothing to do with the killing. That pre-existing envy was the real engine. The defense would say it was everything. That the snitch accusation in that world from a man that powerful triggered an uncontrollable psychological explosion. But for Cowboy, the man who was right there, who heard the words, who watched his brother bleed out on the concrete, the answer was a question he couldn't stop demanding. "I had to get up there. I want to look thee in the face. And I still need to know why. 'Cause I know you didn't kill him behind the conversation." Cowboy knew it in his bones. A 4-minute talk about paperwork doesn't make a man load 2 guns, circle the block, and come back on a mission. Something else was driving Holder. Something deeper than a quick street conversation about snitching. And that's exactly what prosecutors tried to figure out during the trial. The trial and the verdict. 3 years, 3 whole years between the murder and the trial. Pandemic shutdowns, court delays, logistical nightmares, and a city that never, not for one day, stopped grieving. When the proceedings finally kicked off in downtown LA in June 2022, the question on the table wasn't whether Eric Holder pulled the trigger. He never disputed that. The question was what kind of murder this was. First degree, premeditated, deliberate, planned, or voluntary manslaughter, heat of passion, no cool-down window, a man who snapped and couldn't pull himself back. That 9 to 10 minute gap between the conversation and the gunfire. That was the entire battlefield. The prosecution said it proved premeditation. The defense said it wasn't enough time to cool off from the most explosive accusation in street culture. But before a single juror could weigh in, the trial dropped its first bomb. While Holder was sitting in a holding cell waiting for transport to the courthouse, multiple inmates jumped him. One sliced the back of his head open with a razor, punched in the head, hospitalized, stapled shut, came back to court with a swollen eye and bandages wrapped around his skull, looking like a man already doing time before the verdict even dropped. His lawyer begged for protective measures. The trial paused, then picked back up with Holders sitting in front of the jury, looking like the walking preview of what the rest of his life was going to look like behind bars. Deputy DA John McKinney came with the full playbook. Premeditation and envy. That was the prosecution's spine. The timeline was the weapon. Holder had 9 to 10 minutes after walking away from NP. In that window, he loaded 2 guns, changed his shirt, circled the block, came back on foot. That ain't a man who lost control. McKenna argued. That's a man who made a decision. And the fuel behind that decision? Pre-existing jealousy of the beloved favorite son who made it out while Holder was still stuck. The jury got the surveillance footage. Nip dropping shots continuing while he's on the ground. The kick to the head. McKenna narrated it real time. He's living through being shot over and over, holding his arm up. Cowboy took the stand and broke all the way down. Key eyewitness, the one who heard the paperwork conversation, watched Holder leave and come back, saw the aftermath up close. His testimony locked down the timeline and confirmed the initial exchange was non-hostile, which cut the legs out from under the defense's argument that Holder had been provoked beyond control. But Cowboy's presence wasn't just about facts. After one lunch break, as a bandaged Holder was being escorted out, Cowboy looked him dead in the face and yelled, "Put a stake on that eye." Every single day of that trial, the air was thick with grief, rage, and the unbearable reality of having the man who took your brother sitting 20 feet away in handcuffs. And that guilt, the guilt of not being there when Nip needed him most, was the thing that ate Cowboy alive on the stand. Because before the courtroom drama, before the legal arguments, before any verdict was read, Cowboy had to live every single day with the fact that he'd stepped away from Nip's side right before those shots changed everything. He had to sit in that courtroom 20 feet from the man who kicked his best friend in the head while he lay dying and maintain enough composure to deliver testimony that would hold up under cross-examination. That kind of strength staying measured when every cell in your body is screaming is something most people will never have to find in themselves. And when the weight finally broke through, it came out raw. "I just feel regret that I left aside. I should have never left aside." The protector's nightmare. The one who walked away at the worst possible moment. And the weight of what he couldn't have predicted made it heavier. "I did not see this coming. No way. No how." Defense attorney Aaron Jansen tried to get the jury inside Holder's head. In 60s territory, a public snitch accusation from somebody as influential as Nippy ain't just an insult. It's a death warrant on your whole existence. Being marked, being hunted, being exiled from the only community you've ever known. Jansen painted his client as a man swallowed whole by fear, humiliation, and blind rage. A man whose psychological wiring short-circuited under the weight of the most explosive accusation in street culture. Little Eric Holder Jr. just wanted chili cheese fries and peace, he told the jury. He noted Holder had been non-active and had documented mental health issues, schizophrenia, auditory hallucinations, paranoia, though none of that was formally raised as a defense at trial. The prosecution clapped back with a single devastating image. Holder arriving at the scene shirtless. Every Roland 60s tattoo on full display for the world to see. If he was really out the game, McKenna suggested he had a real funny way of advertising it. The getaway driver got grilled on contradictions in her testimony. Surveillance footage showed Holder didn't rush straight to Nip after coming back around the block, which blew up the defense's entire narrative of an instantaneous, uncontrollable eruption of violence. Witness after witness broke down on the stand, reliving the gunshots, the sight of Nip on the pavement, the blood, the chaos of that. Parking lot on what was supposed to be a quiet Sunday afternoon. And in the wake of the murder, the rumors had already started twisting the narrative. Word spread that Nippy had flat out called Holder a snitch, that the killing was justified by the code. Cowboy knew that was twisted. He'd been right there, and he understood that if he didn't step up, the story would get jacked by people who weren't anywhere near that parking lot. The rumors were saying Nippy called him a snitch. I'm the only one heard that conversation. The only living witness. The only person on earth who could set the record straight about what Nippy actually said to hold her in those final minutes. He carried that weight to the stand, not because a subpoena forced him, but because letting the internet rewrite his best friend's final chapter, letting clout chasers and conspiracy theorists dictate the narrative of Nip's last moments on Earth, was something he refused to live with. Nip spent his whole career controlling his own story. Independent drops, self-funded businesses, his narrative told on his terms. The least Cowboy could do was make sure the last chapter got told by somebody who was actually there when it all went down. July 6, 2022. The jury came back guilty of first-degree murder, plus 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter for the bystanders, plus a firearms charge. Heat of passion. The jury wasn't having it. Not even close. 9 to 10 minutes was more than enough time to cool off. The prosecution had mapped every second, every movement, Every choice Holder made in that window. Loading 2 guns was deliberate. Changing his shirt was deliberate. Circling the block was deliberate. Walking back on foot to a man who had shown him nothing but respect was deliberate. Every step after that conversation was a step toward premeditated murder. And 12 jurors looked at that chain of decisions and saw through every excuse the defense tried to spin. Holder sat stone-faced when the verdict dropped. Not a flinch, not a blink. Not a single visible reaction to the fact that his life was now over in every way that matters. Outside the courtroom, 3 years of compressed grief detonated. Cowboy broke down crying, told reporters the verdict brought no peace to a community still hemorrhaging without Nip. And he was right. The store's Nippy opened shuttered. The jobs he created gone. The young homies he was mentoring drifting right back into the streets he spent years pulling them out of. A guilty verdict could cage Holder, but it couldn't resurrect what Nip had been building brick by brick, dollar by dollar, handshake by handshake. Crenshaw didn't just lose a rapper. They lost the gravitational center around which the whole neighborhood sense of what was possible had been organized. How Snoop Dogg did the bullet. February 22nd, 2023. Judge H. Clay Jackie II dropped the hammer. 60 years to life. Let that number sit. 25 to life for the first-degree murder. 25 to life for the gun enhancement. 10 more years for the assaults on the bystanders. The judge summed it up in 2 words. Cold-blooded. Holder might technically become eligible for elderly parole once he hits his 50s, but the real talk, he's almost certainly dying inside those walls. The defense made its last stand. Holder's pops wrote a letter laying out his son's mental health history, schizophrenia diagnosis at 19. Hearing voices, a manic episode where he smashed a window thinking somebody was coming to end him. The defense showed photos of the staples and Holder's scalp from the jailhouse razor attack, argued he'd face death threats in isolation for the rest of his days, and asked for 28 years to life. The judge wouldn't even let a psychologist testify. 60 years, final answer. Cowboy stepped up during the impact phase, and what he laid down wasn't about Holder. It was about what Holder ripped away from an entire hood. The shuttered businesses, the evaporated jobs, the young homies backsliding into the same cycles Nip spent years trying to break. A whole community that lost its center of gravity. And if there was one person outside that inner circle who truly understood the depth of what was gone, it was the man the internet had been trying to crucify. Snoop Dogg. This is where the conspiracy theories don't just weaken, they disintegrate completely. Because while the internet was painting Snoop as the shadow behind the trigger, while content creators were stitching together interview clips and surveillance footage to build a narrative of betrayal, Snoop was doing something no conspiracist has ever been able to explain away. Grieving publicly, deeply, and with a vulnerability that no amount of acting could manufacture. Calvin Browse Jr. had been rocking with Nippy for years. Same LA soil, same gang-adjacent roots, same experience of being tall, braided West Coast MCs who navigated the industry. Snake pits in their own lanes. Snoop put Nippy on 2009's Upside Down, then recorded Nippy Blue as a 2020 tribute, a whole track dedicated to the man the internet claimed he helped destroy. And what Snoop described about their connection wasn't the careful, calculated language of a man trying to cover his tracks. It was the raw, unfiltered language of somebody whose heart got cracked wide open. But one thing that me and Nip had was a kind spirit. We had that spirit of love. Spirit of love, not the words of a co-conspirator. At the Staples Center Memorial, 21,000 mourners deep, Snoop fought tears telling the story of hearing Nip's music for the first time at a football practice. He waved off the CD, then rolled one up, actually pressed play, and the talent hit him like a freight train. From that moment, the bond was magnetic. Long story short, we ended up connecting. We ended up making music together. We ended up making a brotherhood. We ended up creating a bond. We created something that was special. That brotherhood went past studio sessions. Nippy pushed Snoop to think bigger, see further. And Snoop recognized something in Nip that maybe even Nip didn't fully see in himself. The things that he wanted for me, he did for himself. But he had vision for me that I didn't even have for myself. One of the most successful artists in West Coast history, saying a younger cat had vision for him that he didn't even possess himself. Let that marinate. A man who's sold millions of records, who's been a household name for 3 decades, who's navigated every level of the music industry. And he's saying Nippy saw something in him that he couldn't see in himself. That ain't the testimony of a man who orchestrated a murder. That's the grief of somebody who lost a person who believed in his potential more than he believed in his own. It tells you everything about who Nippy was. Ambition that wasn't selfish, drive that pushed outward, a concept of winning that was built for the whole team, not just one man. And Snoop spoke directly to Nip's authenticity, the realness that the streets recognized and the industry could never manufacture. And the reason why I know this is because that's what I am. You know, real recognize real. I know what he is. I know what he was. Real recognize real. Overused in hip-hop, but from Snoop at that moment, voice cracking, eyes flooding, standing before a stadium of grief. It was a declaration. He knew Nip because they were cut from the same cloth. And that knowledge made the loss permanent and irreversible. Then Snoop turned to the people Nip left behind. He looked at Lauren London and made a promise as raw as the grief behind it. So with that being said, Lauren, my wife, my family, my kids, we're here for you. Wherever you need, whatever you need. Not a polite card. His whole household on the line for a woman whose world just got ripped apart. If you need a shoulder to cry, if you need a hug, you just need to get away. We here for you. Then Snoop turned to Nippy's father, a man who'd watched his son climb from the streets to community royalty and now had to bury him. And Pops, I'd look at your face every time I come in the store and I just sing the joy. Every time Snoop came to Nip's store and saw Nip's Pops, joy, that's the texture of a real bond. And what came next was the emotional peak of the entire memorial. I just want you to know that you may have lost a son, but you picked up another son in me. You lost a son, but you gained another one in me. In a culture where chosen family fills the gaps that broken bloodlines leave behind, where the bonds forged on the block run as deep as DNA, that wasn't a metaphor. That wasn't a performance for the cameras. Snoop was telling Nip's father in front of 21,000 witnesses, I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. Your loss is my loss, and your family is my family. From this day, till they put me in the dirt. Does that sound like the words of a man who orchestrated a murder? Or does it sound like a man whose heart got ripped in half by losing someone he considered blood? The conspiracy theorists can clip interviews all day long, stitch together timelines, connect dots that don't actually touch. But they can never explain away a moment like that, because grief that deep can't be faked, and love that visible can't be manufactured. Holder's appeal got unanimously rejected by the California 2nd District Court of Appeal on November 5, 2024. 25-page ruling, no errors found, every argument dismantled. January 16, 2025. The California Supreme Court declined to even look at the case. Done. No more legal moves. No more twists. Eric Holder Jr. will spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. And the conviction is final and unreadable. What's left is the void, the marathon clothing store, the real estate moves, the jobs, mentorship, the presence of a man who proved you could escape the gravity of the streets without turning your back on the people still caught in it. Nipsey Hussle wasn't a symbol. He was a working blueprint. And when Eric Holder erased him over fries, over paperwork, over 9 minutes of choices that can never be undone, he didn't just take a life. He collapsed the proof of concept that an entire neighborhood had been building its future on. Snoop keeps the spirit alive. The music still knocked. The legacy keeps compounding, but the man himself, Armis Joseph Askedum, Neighborhood Nip, the marathon, is gone. And the 60 years Holder's going to serve, They'll never be enough to fill the space he left behind. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen.